Every legal marketer in the world is selling AI snake oil. Supercharge your intake, 10x your firm, any tool in your inbox every week. Everyone promising to change everything. No wonder you tuned it out. This was the rational response. Today, we are going in the opposite of all that noise, and we're going to help you decide which AI actually fits your firm. Welcome back to the Sterling Family Law Show, the show for family law firm owners who want to grow their profits, multiply their cases, and set a clear roadmap on what they need to do to build the firm of their dreams. Our episodes break down proven business growth, digital marketing, and revenue-first strategies to help you scale smarter and not just be busy. I am your host, Tyler Dolph. I'm also the CEO of Rocket Clicks, which is a family law firm only consultancy that helps family law firms drive more revenue and increase profits through full service development. Today, I have Tony Carls with me, who is the co-founder of Sterling Lawyers, our sister business that has grown to over 30 attorneys. He is talking to us about AI. He's driven our AI infrastructure, and we have lots to discuss. We're going to talk about the false belief that there are too many AI tools and you can't evaluate them, and why there's no perfect AI model to find. There's one you train and build into your firm. We're going to talk about the questions that Tony used to evaluate the platform that Sterling chose and why we chose the platform we did. All right, Tony, welcome back. We're staying in the weeds. We're talking AI for family law firms. Today, we're going to talk about which platform we chose, why we chose that platform, and the benefits of going all in on a single platform as opposed to having 9 different subscriptions with 9 different companies. So I think let's just take the cat out of the bag, right? We chose to use Claude Enterprise. Give us some background on how you thought about the different platform options and then why we kind of went with Claude.
Yeah. So when we were picking, we really had 3 options. Grok was not as built out as a platform as it is today. So that one was in the running, but it wasn't really in the running because its tooling isn't ready. It wasn't ready, still isn't ready yet. It's great for development. I actually long-term think they might be the ones that win just based on infrastructure process that Elon's building, but that's a different conversation entirely. So there's really 3 that we were considering. One was Gemini with Google. One was OpenAI. That's ChatGPT. And then the third was Anthropic, which is Claude. So what was important to us as we were reviewing it is really what was in their terms of service. How did that work? So that was the most important thing. Then secondarily was which of those 3 platforms had a predisposition to building good user interface for the professional, not the developer, not the super nerd that's trying to dig deep into this thing, but like the everyday person that's going to use this type of tooling in their job. So that was the second thing. And then the third was related to it, but the concept of which of the ones had the most accessible agentic abilities that were going to be most accessible for that user that I described, because that's our lawyers, that's our accountants, it's our marketers, it's all of the professional people that have these white collar professional jobs that are going to be interacting with AI. And Claude won out on all 3. That was our opinion. It definitely won out on the UI. They've continued that in terms of how they've laid it out and how they've made it friendly for the non-technical person. The agentic portion, they were ahead. I think that gap's pretty much been closed. OpenAI has done a good job of like building their own version of Cowork, which is an Anthropic tool. So and then Gemini still feels to me more complicated. It feels like a more complicated enterprise platform. Them two, I believe, between the 4 of them that exist, I think the ones that have the biggest long-term upside in winning, who wins the race out of those four. I think it's Gemini or Grok. That would be my opinion. But right now, based on where the tooling is and how familiar users are with the different tools and how they can be leveraged, are when we started this process last year, Anthropic was the winner, and it's still positioned very well. The other two long term have high capability of winning, has more to do with their infrastructure setup than anything else. So, Elon's moving towards fully enclosed position where he has his own data centers in space that kind of get they're solar powered. They're modified versions of the current satellite constellations that he has. He obviously has a satellite constellation to transmit the data. Plus, he can launch them crazy easily with his own rockets. So, like, there's a forward compute opportunity that he has and nobody else has. Where Google's positioned very well is they're using their own chips, so they're fully self-integrated, vertically integrated almost entirely. And their chips are very powerful. They at the end of last year, they really leapfrogged where they were to where they are, and they're going to continue that pathing. And they have obviously some of the best cash flow from a corporate enterprise perspective than any company in the world, having Google and YouTube as two flagship products. So, but right now, where we feel like the winner is with Claude. That's our current perspective, and OpenAI, we'll see what happens there. They were the first to the show, which reminds me a lot of, the Yahoo, the MySpace, the Alta Vista of the world. And there's, these relationships in this space are going to be very important as things continue, and it feels like there's some challenges for them in that arena.
What if your family law firm isn't behind on AI? It just never started on the right foot. A prompt that someone wrote, a tool on a paralegal's laptop, an SOP that nobody opened. None of it survives the person who made it. The work still routes through you because nothing lives in a system. Because AI isn't something you buy, it's something you build. We built ours at Sterling Lawyers, which is a $20 million family law firm. And we're teaching the journey behind Family Law Firm AI Factory, starting with the 4 AI first that you need to know: pricing, policy, platform, and progression. Links in the show notes below to know more. So how's it going? Like, what was the adoption curve like at Sterling? How did you create the awareness? Because I think a lot of companies have like an internal advocate, but in order for AI to really help a firm, you've got to get people on board.
Yep. So, the model we've used to get adoption has been we've set up what I would call like corporate engagements, where weekly we're having a Friday meeting where I'm essentially leading it, and whoever comes, they are the one that screen shares their instance, and then I walk them through creating whatever the thing is that they had an idea about. That's gone very well because it's started to show other people that are on there that are less brave or less, ready to take the step to jump in. What it looks like, how it works. It kind of like removes the big unknown, which is like, I don't know how this thing works. I don't know if I'm going to break something. I don't know what I'm doing. Because they can see somebody doing it, and they can see like, oh, this isn't as scary as I thought it was. Then they're getting questions answered along the way, and we're seeing good adoption. So that's kind of a standing meeting that we have every Friday. That's an hour long, and by the end of it, every week, somebody comes out of that meeting with something that's useful for their day-to-day job, and it accelerates their production flow. From there, we have breakout sessions, different teams that have been engaged. We then kind of meet on a team-by-team basis to build out specific things for their part of the business, if that makes sense. And that's gone really well. And then I have also one-on-ones with different folks that kind of want to continue down the value chain of how do I leverage this more and more versus just kind of the corporate skill set that we're trying to develop with our team. So that that third one kind of leads into a group that we call FAFO. You can Google FAFO if you want to and figure out what that means. But that's a group that we have running, and how we focused on it is how do we create an ecosystem where those that want to continue using the more and more advanced versions of this, how do they do it safely? How do we build containers for them so that their ability to vibe code and like build unique, cool things for their job that makes their job easier and makes them more productive is readily available, but also safe at the same time. So that's kind of the multiple different ways we've engaged it. So our thought process is we're going to lead and we're going to enable. And then as the team members come along, they're going to see more and more adoption. And as they talk about it, more people are joining and more people are getting involved. And we're not trying to force it. We're very much having it be an organic process.
I love it. And how's the adoption going?
Good. I mean, it's different for each business unit. But I would say every business unit is actively using it in some way, shape, or form. Some way more than others, but that's how adoption rate goes. What I would say is like there was very little movement prior to November, December of last year, and we've seen a massive acceleration in movement since. And to the extent that it's enabled us to really remove some roles in our hiring pipeline and have conversations with other team members that were very admin focused on like, this is where we feel like things are going, and this role probably won't be available. Here's what we do have. Where do you fit? So it's really augmented how we've continued to move the firm forward, and we've seen it in at least 6 role massive augmentations where the function is essentially being fulfilled by an AI bot or some very specific AI application that we've built. And it's also condensed the amount of hiring we thought we would need to do this year, which is obviously positively hitting our balance sheet and our P&L.
I think it's taking that first step. It's understanding in our last episode last week, we talked about the importance of a corporate account versus just your generic standard account and why you need that from a governance perspective and an ethics perspective. But, once you're in, you need to build that adoption, and then you got to find cool ways to find efficiencies within your firm. I think my favorite story is what you built for Mary on the sales team from a call audit perspective. Will you remind our audience what that is?
Sure. Yeah. So on the sales side, we have 2 groups in our sales unit. One is our intake setters, and one is our closers, and both use it a lot. So on the intake side, we used to have 2 roles dedicated to QA, and they would audit calls. So they would literally every week, every agent would get 10 call interactions scored on a rubric that we've created for sales calls. So we get a nice sampling of how are they doing. But we get about 200 calls a day. We have about 10 to 12 agents, depending on how you want to count them. So really only getting a very small sample size. We're getting 120 calls listened to a day. So not even a full day's worth of phone calls. That's what we were getting every week. Now with the QA agent that we built, it scores every call every day. And we get a fresh report that's what would you call it? A trend report's the wrong word, but it does an overall analysis of where are the biggest gaps that would, if we addressed them, they would improve our set rate. So, and that gets used. One way we've redeployed some of the budget is we took one of our agents off the phone, in addition to the 2 QA, and that person is now responsible for training. So they're not managing the team, but they're responsible for ongoing training, and they're using this QA tool as kind of their fodder for what's the training they need to put together for the next morning. That's like generally applicable to everybody based on the patterns that are emerging. And then what's the training plan for each individual person where they need specific help for their own individual improvement. So it's really enabled that function in a much more considerable way, because the amount of data now that Sydney gets is exponential comparatively to what she was getting, because it was just a sample.
Same. And it's our ability to basically deliver real-time coaching to our sales team so that our consult to close rate continues to go up.
Yeah. I mean, another one we built, there's two roles that do a lot of admin work for for the firm generally. They watch our general inbox that we have for the firm, which gets tons of emails every day. It watches all text messages that come in that don't get matched to a record, which is a whole bunch every day. So they have a whole bunch of different roles that they do. Most of that's now triaged by an agent instead of by a human. So it happens faster. We can respond faster. One of the things that we're building into it, we're calling our refer out engine, which when you start growing your firm, your ability to train the nuances of who's a qualified person versus who isn't, it gets worse. More junk comes through. Some positive things get weeded out. And you don't actually know about the weed outs because those never show up in a report. You never learn about them. So now every call that gets to the next enhancement we're doing with that triage agent is everything that gets marked referred out, it's getting audited. And that's a real-time audit. And if it's inappropriately sent outbound, and we found several of these, this is why, is we had new agent, they're not familiar with the Illinois area, so they didn't know that they didn't know one of the cities that was right next to Aurora was there, and it was part of our service area. So they referred it out. Great case. And the only reason we found it was from the QA tool that we built, because it was flagged as a refer out, it was scored as a refer out, and then it was identified that this shouldn't have been referred out. So that was a coaching conversation. Now we're able to do that real time, so that it's not so that we can address it on the spot and fix it faster. And hopefully recover the one that we inadvertently.
Yes. No, actually, we want to help you.
Yeah, we were wrong. I didn't realize what you meant when you said Naperville.
Tony, appreciate your help and insights as always. AI is here. It's time to embrace it for your family law firm and continue to drive those profits up. That's the third permit, the platform. You've got the first three permits. You know how the pricing model sets AI's value within a firm, the policy you need to comply with, and how to choose the platform you're going to build on. Next week, we start building with the fourth permit you need to clear. We'll climb the 6 floors of the Family Law Firm AI Factory, the step-by-step progression from your very first prompt all the way to a maintained firm-wide system. Make sure to follow the show so the next week's episode lands in your feed. We will see you there.